Hi, and welcome to Talks with Shay. So today I would like to begin with reading from First Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 11. And it says, "Wherefore comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even as also ye do." So today, for part 3 of transitions, I would like to talk to you about relationships. So when I think about transitioning from different types of relationships, it's not just one, it's several. When we think about it, we are in relationship with different people, from having family, those relationships, friends, co-workers, or even a significant other. Whatever relationship we find ourselves in, there does come a time where there's transition that's going to take place. If the relationship is fairly new and you're just getting to know that person, that can be a challenge sometimes, because learning someone and understanding their intentions and getting to know a person can be challenging, because we all bring something different to the plate. But I think of even relationships that we may even think it's best to depart from that relationship. And sometimes it's still painful, even when it's best. But in the midst of transitioning through those different relationships, we have to realize that, you know what? This is what happened. This is where I'm headed. And this is where I want to go. So many times, if we don't recognize where we are in those transitions with different relationships and the healing process that it brings, we can carry those luggage and those baggage into another relationship that we form. And it's not just significant other. It can be a friend. You know, if you had a friendship with someone that constantly did you wrong or used you or misused you and mistreated you a certain way, you became used to that relationship. And then when you form new relationships and the people are not doing that, it's kind of like, it's kind of odd. And so you kind of wonder, like, something wrong. But in reality, it's something right. You know, when we're going through different relationships and when we're used to being treated a certain way, it almost, sad to say, becomes a normal for us. You know, that's like growing up. If you grew up and seen, let's say, physical abuse, and maybe your parents fought all the time, the likeliness of you growing up in that same situation is very likely. Not saying that it always happens that way, but it's likely. And a lot of times we don't understand. Like, we may think because we wouldn't tolerate it, we're like, why they put up with that? But you don't understand their past, and you don't understand the relationships that they've been through. To them, it's normal. So a lot of times we go through life, and because what we consider a normal relationship, we tend to take on certain things that really is not healthy for us. But if we don't recognize our triggers and the healing that we need to have within ourselves, we carry on all of those traumas into new relationships that we form with different people. You know, a lot of times I think back to my personal life. You know, my last divorce, I was ready for it. Them 6 months separated couldn't come fast enough. I was the first one looked like to that courthouse that day. But you know what? Even though I wanted that divorce to happen, it still wasn't easy. It was the hardest one that I've ever went through, because, you know, nobody gets married to think they're going to end up divorced. But I realized that through that transition time for me, and just realizing that, you know what, Shalonda, what is it that you want? What is it that you desire? What is your worth? And I had to self-evaluate myself and realize that, you know what? Certain relationships are just not healthy for us. And it's okay to recognize that. But when we recognize it, what do we do with it? Now, marriage is not so easy to just turn around and walk away from. Even other relationships are really not that easy to turn around and walk away from. Because once we start investing our feelings, and sometimes even financially, we invest different things into relationships. And sometimes it's like, man, but I didn't put in all this work. I didn't did all of this. You know, it's hard sometimes to turn around and walk away. But in the midst of that transition, sometimes is what we need to recognize is best for us. Even in those broken relationships, God is still near. And the Bible tells us that he is close to those that are of a contrite spirit and a broken heart. And so if he's there, he's going to heal you of those healings that you need in your heart. And I know, like, I know personally speaking, with being, divorced a few times or whatever, not happy about it, but God knows, and he's still good, and he's still God. It just proves the mistakes that we make sometimes as people. I look back to all the times that God literally healed my heart. Those different relationships, though, that I've been in personally with a significant other, each one of them taught me something. But the last one, and maybe because I was older, taught me a lot about what I refuse to settle for anymore. When we're going through different transitions in relationships, it's important for us to recognize, okay, write a to-do list, almost like a do and don't. I am not going to tolerate this, and I'll be okay with this. Relationships come with compromising. And yeah, I get it, but we can't compromise everything. There are some things that we just have to refuse to say. I refuse to compromise these things. For example, one of the things I refuse to compromise is someone that is not walking the same walk with God that I am in. How the Bible say, if the blind leading the blind, they're both gonna fall in the ditch. So, I'm not trying to be led by a man that is not being led by God. And when we try to force God on people, or to even want to try to serve God in the capacity that we're at, sometimes we're setting up those relationships for failure. Prayer is the most important thing. Prayer, fasting, and the word of God. Because there is times that the Bible say you're unequally yoked. We look at that relationship that God is talking about in the Bible about unequally yoked, and we look at it in just marriage. But today, I want us to look at it in all relationships. Because when you're not equally yoked, even in a friendship, that friendship is not going to work. It's not going to be healthy for either person. And so we have to realize, okay, it's not just being married and being unequally yoked, but it can be with friends, it can be with family, or whatever else. So we have to be careful who we are unequally yoked with. We need people that's heading in the same direction as us, to be on the same path as us, that's heading towards the same goals in life. Transitioning with relationships can be a lot of stress on a person. From some people going to a severe depression from it. Some people feeling like, I don't even know how to function without this person. So they may tend to stick in an ugly relationship just because of those reasons. Let me tell you something. God is the only one that can provide all of your needs. All of your needs. He says it in his words. He will supply all your needs. Let him. Prove him and let him show you. Don't stay in situations that you need to not be in because it's a comfort zone for you. Yes, transitioning from relationships is a lot of work. Because getting to know different people at different levels, it takes time. But sometimes that healing process shows us so much more about ourselves that we needed to know. So I encourage you today, wherever you are or heading to or will be in the future or maybe right now, whatever transition in relationships that you're dealing with, take time out for yourself. Search yourself. Ask yourself, what is it that I truly want? What is it that I desire? And most importantly, what is it that God would have me to do? He wants to form those relationships in our lives, but we have to put him in his rightful place first. Let him form those relationships, because when God forms them, they're in his will and they'll work out fine. And it's not going to be perfect, but I said fine, because he's going to give you the understanding that we need to be in different relationships with each other. So even when you look back at your life, or even at your life today, I don't know where you are and what transition in relationships you're at this time in life, whether you're in it now or will go in the future. Just know that transitioning is not easy, but it's worth it. And learn something through it. I know that it's not always easy, but it's possible. With God, all things are possible. And if He's allowing us to transition from different relationships, take what you need to take from the other person, from that relationship, and leave the rest of it behind that needs to be left behind. It's time to move forward. Transition through the relationships that you need to right now. Clean up some work in your life, I would say. Not saying work like work, but clean up some relationships in your life. It's going to take some work, but it will be worth it in the end. Transitioning with relationships are not always easy. Most of the time it's not. But like I said, it's worth it. And take that time and get healing and search yourself and find out who you really are during that time. Don't let it take you out so bad that you let depression and oppression come upon you. God knows what He's doing. And there's a season for different things. Some people are there seasonal. And when their season in, it's time for a transition. But some people God brings in your life truly is a lifetime. Treasure those people that are a lifetime in your life right now. So, before Shay go, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, check out my website at www.talkswithshay.org. You can subscribe to my videos on YouTube and find me on Facebook. Like my page, share my page, invite your friends to like my page. And until next time with Talks with Shay, Shay is out. Y'all be blessed.